Hey guys, in the fast lane here. In this video I'm going to be showing you how to replace the B series transmission on this GSR. Now this video I don't show how to remove the axles, but you can click above where it says axles and it'll take you to a video on a Honda Accord and it shows you how to remove the axles there. It's the exact same setup. Also in this video I'll be showing you about the clutch and pressure plate removal and installation. Alright, so we got all the axles out and the transmission fluids drained. So now I'm going to be taking off the intercooler piping and the radiator, and then we'll get to the transmission. Okay, so what I have to do next is I'm just going to disconnect all this intercooler piping. You guys will probably just have an intake. So with me, I got to disconnect it all the way to here so I can get in there and actually maybe even take this one off. But more than likely I'm just going to take it off from here so I can get to the transmission mounts and stuff. I'm going to take out my breather box right here, catch can, that's what they call it. The radiator will be coming out, and then once that's done, be taking out the distributor and anything else that's in my way, like hoses and stuff, to get to the transmission. And then from there, I'll be working under the car. Alright guys, so here's where I'm at right now. I removed the catch can, had to disconnect some end fittings to the valve cover. Also, I'm going to remove the distributor, starter, and radiator, so I'll be filming that here next. For the radiator, there's a couple ways you can do it. You can take the hoses off of the radiator, or you can take the hoses off the actual head and block. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take the hoses off the head and block, and I'm going to take the mount off here and remove this overflow bottle. Alright, so the overflow bottle just kind of pulls right up. Just set that aside. I'm going to take off this mount, but before I do, I'm going to get my pliers and I'm just going to pull this clamp back. Now there's probably still some antifreeze in here, so we'll see. So pull this one back. Make sure you get it all the way off the nipple or else it'll get stuck. Sometimes you might need to get a flathead screwdriver to kind of pry it off. So I'm going to aim this hose straight down to the pan. Maybe pinch the line. There we go. Alright, so there's nothing in that one. Just leave that one. This one's probably going to have some in here. So you don't want to jerk it too hard, because if you do, it might come back and bust your knuckle on something. So if you can get like a flathead in there and kind of crack the rubber loose, there we go. Alright, there's nothing in this one either. Also, if you're changing out a thermostat, this is the perfect time to do it. Your thermostat is going to be right here in this housing. It's right in there. You just take the two, I think they're 10mm bolts. You pull the top off and the thermostat comes right off. Pretty sure I did a video on how to change the thermostat, so if you want to see that, check that out. The next part, everything's disconnected. All we do is take this 12mm bracket off, or mount. Alright. And it's pretty much, I'm just going to leave the mount like that, just turn to the side. Actually, I got a radiator fan bolted to it, so you're going to have to, on the inside, you're going to have to take off the plug or whatever. So yours will be a little different. My plug's right here. I'm just going to unclip it. Now all we're going to do is just lift up. I'm going to tilt it forward, just get the rest of the coolant out. I got to replace this radiator. I'm sure I said it earlier in the video. I got a little pinhole leak in it, but I got a brand new one back there. Alright, so once that's done, you're just going to lift straight up. There's a little step in there. And that's pretty much it. Make sure you left your bottom rubber grommets in there, because you're going to have to reuse those when you put the radiator back in. Here's what we're going to do on this distributor. I only got one bolt on the top. Now, if you already have your distributor set up, I suggest getting a utility knife or a magic marker. Utility knife might work better, or even a flathead screwdriver. Let me get one of those real quick. So you're going to take a flathead or whatever, and you're going to mark it on the top right here. Just put a nice scratch in there, and then mark the top of the distributor also. I'm going to give you a better shot of what I just did so you can see exactly what to do. Now this will keep your ignition timing right where it needs to be if your car's already tuned or whatever. Here's what I did. I just scratched it right here and right here. So when I take this bolt out, I can turn it and it'll line right up and then just tighten it back down. As for my bolt on the distributor, it's a 10 millimeter. So I'm just going to crack it loose. And we're just going to back it all the way out. Now putting a distributor back in sometimes can be a little tricky. You kind of want to line up the tooth into the cam. So I'll show you that. You got a upward and a downward. Now if it's this way, it's not going to fit in because one side's a little higher than the other. So make sure you line it back up the right way before you go jamming it in there. It should go in like butter. But sometimes they don't because the tooth is upside down. So just set this aside, kind of unplug it, you know, get the plug out. Maybe stuff a rag in there if you're starting to drip excess oil. So I'm going to just take this plug right out right here. Now with this one, if this is plugged into actually your frame, you have to unplug it first because this little mechanism, when it slides in, it locks both of them together. So make sure you unplug it from the frame or the bracket, and then you'll be able to unplug it like that. Just set this aside. I just kind of put it back. Maybe put a cloth under it if you're afraid of scratching stuff up. So the next thing you're going to want to do is unplug all your sensors. We got a reverse light sensor. We got our thermostats. We got our VTEC solenoid sensor. So we got both of them. So let's just unplug them all because we're going to take, if I can get this one out. Well, that ain't good. Looks like the VTEC solenoid wouldn't give up. There we go. That's no big deal. We'll just put that right back in there. Sometimes it happens like that. They just go right back in. Alright, now that we got that, we got thermostat sensors. Some of these are hard to get to because you got to really squeeze on them. And right here we got our coolant sensors. Just pull those out for the head. And here's the reverse. A lot of greasy fingers. There we go. Alright, we got those. Now we have our starter remote switch is right here. So we're going to unplug that. And then all we have left to unplug, well, actually one more thing, we got our ground on the thermostat. Now these are very important because sometimes your car won't start or the computer will act up a little. And this is one of the grounds you always need to check. It's a little hidden one. It's on the thermostat housing. So once that's off, then we just take our positive terminal to the starter, and that's it for wires. One more thing I'd like to point out, if you're having cooling fan issues where your cooling fan's not kicking on or it's staying on or whatever, this sensor right here, this is your problem. This sensor controls your fan. It's a thermostat sensor. So whenever the thermostat opens up and the coolant gets a little hot, it starts to go past the sensor picks it up, turns your fan on. What I like to do, this is the plug that goes to it right here. I unplug the plug and I piggyback it. As you can see, I got a wire going from one wire to the other terminal. You know, just jumpered it. And what that does is when you turn the key and start the engine, the fan stays on all the time. And this is what you want to do with turbo engines, because you know you're running hotter than the average engine. So we're going to take this 12 millimeter off of the starter and this 10 millimeter off of the thermostat housing. So let's just make sure you get your battery unplugged too. That's a good tip. Mine's already unplugged, but I figured I'd tell you guys. Actually, one more thing would be this ground right here on the transmission itself, but I'll get to that when we're doing the transmission. Here's the ground you want to take off. This is another good ground that you need to check if you're having idle issues and stuff like that. We're going to take the slave off. We're going to leave this line connected and just take these two 12 right here. Once you got the two 12s out, just go ahead, kind of wiggle it and kind of slide it back. Just get it out of the way. That's all we want. We just want it out of the way of the transmission. So I'm going to just kind of slide it back here and just leave it right there. And this wire, make sure everything's unplugged and just kind of, you know, remember where everything goes. Shove it back there. We want all the room we can get. You can always reconnect everything nicely later. The last thing for the wiring harness is this speed sensor. This is your transmission speed sensor. It tells you how fast you're going on your speedometer. So push on the clip and just pull it straight up. There's little push buttons. Now removing the starter, you're going to need an extension and a 9/16 or a 14 millimeter. And you're just going to want to break them loose right underneath the starter. That's the hardest one to get to. So you can kind of see what I'm doing here. It's right under, just kind of feel for it. And there it is right there. You can see where it's at, right under the starter. Now this one's kind of a pain because you can't get too much leverage on it. It goes all the way through the transmission to the block, so that's why you have to take the starter off. And that's it. Teeth are looking good. Just inspect your teeth, make sure they're not chipped off or anything. Now we're underneath the car right now, and this is the transmission linkage right here. As you can see, it goes all the way back to the shift knob. What we're gonna do is we're not gonna disconnect it from here and here. We're gonna disconnect it back by the actual shifter itself, because on the other transmission I left the linkage on. And the reason why is they got right here, you see this bolt, and it goes through the shift linkage. Well, they call it, you know, a BITCH pin. And the reason why they call it that is because it is a pain to get out. You got to use like a press, and you got to press it out or drill it out, and drilling it damages the hole. Basically, it's a pin. It's a circle. Just think of a lead pipe with a little cut down the center of it. And when you push it in, it goes in like this, and as you're pushing it up, it kind of squeezes together. And that's how it is. It's a pin like this with the open gap, and when you push it, it starts to close and tighten up inside the hole. And they're real hard to get out, and it's just not worth it. That's why I actually have a bolt on here. And if you have a bolt, the shifting isn't as tight. It's a lot looser, and it feels sloppy. So those pins really help out a lot. Now, on the other one, I have the pin in. The only reason why I didn't do the pin with this one was because the transmission grinded, and I didn't really care. I wasn't gonna have the hassle of having to remove that pin again. So we're gonna take the linkage out from the shifter, and I'll show you how to do that. I figured while I'm under here, I might as well show you the oil sandwich adapter. This is it right here in the middle. This is your filter, and this is my oil cooler for the GSRs. They have water flowing through them. Here's my inlet for my oil pressure gauge right here. You can see this little line. And then on the other side, up top, is my actual turbo feed line. So, I just figured I'd show you that while I'm under here so you get a good visual. Alright, this is a pretty hard shot to get because I'm in very limited space, but I'm going to show you. Right here, I don't know if I'm blocking the light out, there's a 10 millimeter on this side and a 10 on the other side. You got to take that out, and you're going to have like rubber things on either side of the shifter. Now once that's out, right here is a 10 and on the other side is a 10. You're going to remove those two. And then there's a 10 here on the bottom and another 10, and that's it. So you take these two out, that one, and then this one. And the whole linkage will come out. There's no need to go up in your car and remove the whole shifter. There's no point in that. It doesn't need to happen. I actually just went ahead and disconnected it, this one, the single one. And right here, I'm just going to take this part of the linkage off.
and leave it on the transmission, just kind of pull it out. I mean, I'll probably take it off, but no need to disconnecting this one from the shifter. I know I said it earlier, but there's just no need for it. So let me get over here and smack it. There we go. It's just a 12 millimeter, and the other ones over there, you only need a 12 millimeter, just one. I know I said take the other 4 or 5 out, but don't worry about it. You can if you're gonna change out the shifter and all that, but there's really no point. So you're gonna save these bolts if you got the other transmission, because I doubt you have this one. And all you do with this is you just pull towards you, and the whole bushing comes out, and you kind of just let that drop down, and then we can take this one out, and that linkage will pop off, and we're pretty much done with this because I have on the other transmission. So the bolts we're going to be removing underneath the car are this one that goes in the back of the block right here into the transmission. These two go into the transmission. There's no need to take out the main motor mount one. We're going to leave that in there. And then on the inside of the, when you're up top, you're going to take this one out right here. And then that's pretty much it for underneath the vehicle, other than, yeah, you can see it, this one right here. I had to remove my downpipe because I got a big fat 3-inch downpipe, and it's like maybe like 1/4 inch away from this bolt, so there's no way for me to get it out. So that's the last bolt right there on the bottom. Okay guys, this is where I'm at. I took this bolt out right here, 17, this 17 out right here. Actually, let me come up here, and then I took these two 19s out. You can actually leave this bolt up top. It's on the inside. You have to get on top of the engine to take it out, but I leave that on because that's only connected to the block and not the transmission. So when you go to bolt the next transmission up, you're going to push it flush to these two 19s, and before you start torquing in there, kind of put one bolt in the top and then start to wiggle it so you can get the bolts in. You don't want to torque it down up top because it might not line up with these guys. One more quick tip, there's usually a dust shield, and it bolts up here and here on the B-Series engines, just like the D-Series. If you're wanting to know how to take it off, go check out my video on how to remove an oil pan on a Honda Civic D-Series. It's in my videos, so I show you exactly how to take it off with some good detail. But I don't have a dust shield or a dust guard because I don't use it. Just easy access to anything. I can check my teeth out. If you guys remember, on my last video I did about the Ford Ranger Mazda B-Series clutch replacement, I used this. I built this actually in that video, and basically it just bolts onto your jack. You just take the top piece out, and you just bolt it right on top. I'm going to come over here, get some stuff around there, and show you. So I got this on jack stands, so I'm going to lower it. And we're going to need to put this under the transmission because it's going to come down, you know. I'm trying to do this away without a cherry picker. I do have a cherry picker, but if you can see how this is done, it'll help you out a lot because a lot of people don't have cherry pickers or whatever. Anyhow, so there's a cotter pin right here. I'm going to turn it around and get my flathead screwdriver. There we go. Take the cotter pin out, and you can pull the top piece right out. Now what I did here is I just made this little guy, and you can see it's just going to go straight down in there. So I'm going to take these bolts off, and you could probably run a flat steel plate under here because you can see how it's digging in a little bit because that was a bigger transmission. But you're just going to take the bolt off. I just found some bolts and washers, you know, lock nuts. And all we do is flip it like that, run it down through the bolt, and you got yourself a transmission jack stand. Here's what I got going on right now. I got the wooden jack over here, the little bit bigger jack, and I got a smaller jack over here. And I have a couple blocks of wood on the smaller jack, and you can see right here it's just butt up against the bottom of the oil pan so that the engine, when it's separated, doesn't drop down. Then over here I got where the transmission's gonna kind of sit down on this jack right here. We're gonna leave this bolt alone right here. This is to the mount, and all we got to take off is 1, 2, 3, and then we got to take off 4, 5, and 6, 7, 8, 9, and loosen this mount bolt and just lift the mount back. So I'm going to start off with removing this one. And that's it for that. Leave that like that if you really want to. I mean, you don't got to take it out, but it's probably best you do because you're going to have a lot of wiggle. Now we're going to disconnect this main bolt right here. That's another 17 millimeter. So it goes all the way through to a solid bolt on the actual mount. So you don't have to have a socket on either side. So let's go ahead and... Alright, now there's going to be a little bit of pressure in there. Let's see if we can't... The drill back it out. Alright, so you notice it didn't drop too much, and that's because I got the jack under there. Alright, so we're on the passenger side of the vehicle, and you can see how the transmission's sitting on this little guy right here. So as we come underneath here, I'm going to show you where those bolts are. And you can see them right there. There's a 14 right there, and then there's another 14 right there. Just take those two out right there. You don't need to take that big bolt out right there. Just take those two out, and this mount right here will drop right down. So here's what that transmission mount looks like. These were the two that we just took out, and there's the 3. Now these two right here are 18, and I believe this one's a 17. I changed these out because they had stripped threads, so they're going to use a different size. But let me buzz these off. Got those two out, and we just got one more right here. That's gonna be a 17, I'm pretty sure. Let me get, might be a 17 deep socket, but I might be able to catch a piece of it. We'll see. Yep, there we go. And you're just gonna pull up on the mount, and that's pretty much it for that. And now the transmission's ready to come out, so I'm gonna get my hands on this thing. Just get a big flathead. Alright, so here's the big flathead. You're gonna kind of just put it in a spot. You don't want to dent up the block too much. But there we go. You can see it's coming out right here. I'll put it between the motor mount. Just wiggle it. And you might want to keep jacking it up and then let it back down. So I'm going to put a piece of this screwdriver in there. Let me see if you guys can see it. Yep, you guys can see it. Alright, and then I'm going to jack it up a little bit. And it's going to push out the bottom like that. And then you just kind of keep pushing it out. So there's no need to get your fingers busted up, anything like that. There we go. We're actually off of the motor right now. There we go. Whole transmission's out. We got all that done. We're just gonna drop the transmission down right now. That wasn't too bad. And as you can see, transmission is ready to be pulled out. I'm gonna have to kind of maybe slide it off of the jack stand, but other than that, it was pretty smooth. Okay, let's see if we can't just roll this thing out. Oh yeah, it's gonna be just a little tight, but not too bad at all. Just intercooler piping kind of getting in the way. There we go. And then just gotta lift up on the tranny just a hair. There we go. And should come right out. Bumper might just get in the way just a hair. There we go. Got the whole transmission out of here.
So I'm just gonna grab this thing, set it aside.
So right here, it's pretty noisy. You hear that? That kind of noise right there it's a problem. You need to replace it. It's making all kinds of noise. So that's what you get when you let off the clutch and you hear, you know, that's the noise you're getting. I was going to put the transmission back on, but I kind of wanted to just test out my pilot bearing. Kind of just thought of it the last minute. And this is something you guys want to do. You want to put your finger in the actual, let me see if I can't hold this camera, in here all the way to the back where the flywheel, and kind of spin your finger, and if it feels like a rough bearing, because there's a bearing, it's called a pilot bearing on the flywheel, and if it feels real rough, not smooth when you're turning the bearing back and forth, or really loose, then it needs to be replaced. So mine, I don't know if you can hear this, I'll try to be quiet, but you can listen. Anyhow, it's going grum, 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 grum. So it's really rough. So I'm going to have to take out the entire clutch system. So I'm going to take out all these 10mm 12-point ARP bolts. Here's the part I got for the throwout bearing or clutch release bearing, and also the pilot bearing. So here's the pilot bearing. This is a B18C1 94 Acura Integra engine, all the way up to 2000. Or maybe even 2001. So here's the part number. It's 102-CC, and the company, there it is right there. Company is National. You can get these at advanced discount. This one, just a small little guy, but it's real important because this can make a lot of noise. You want it to be super smooth. And when I put my finger in the other one, it was all like just real rough. Felt like there was dirt in the bearing. Also, this right here, that's the pilot bearing. This is the clutch release bearing or throwout bearing. The part number on this is 614072, and you can see clutch release bearing, and then there it is in Spanish. Anyhow, so this has a lifetime warranty through AutoZone. Alright, so here's what it looks like. I'm going to compare this one to the original one to give you guys a feel and idea of what you want to look for in a bad clutch or throwout bearing. This right here is the original one, and you can see them. So this one, I mean, I can't even push it, it won't spin, but this one, see that? That's bad. See how that thing's just cruising and making all kinds of noise? You can't even do that to this one. It's just real stiff, and that's what you're looking for. Well, this video very quickly turned into a pull the transmission and swap it to a pull the transmission and replace the clutch. Now, there's nothing wrong with this clutch, but I'm going to pull the clutch just to show you guys how, and I have to change out the pilot bearing. So the first thing you're going to start off with is you need your key. Okay, this is an Acura key for the B series, and it's number 88. So, Acura key, excuse me, Acura key and 88. So, all you're going to do is you're just going to place the key right in there and turn it until it slides through, and then push it all the way back, and that's going to go right to the back of the pilot bearing, and it's going to hold that clutch in when you release the pressure plate. So I'm going to start with the ones on the bottom. Probably completely blocking your sight. There we go. Now we're gonna move it out just like that. Let's set it down. So you can see right now that that is holding the actual clutch in. If you can see what I mean when you take it out. This clutch, if you can see, it would just fall right off. So now all we're going to do is grab the key and the clutch and just pull it out just like that. And this clutch is still in really good shape. One more thing before I go and pull this pilot bearing out. Look underneath on the block part right here, underneath on the bottom, and see if you see any oil leakage. But I wouldn't even worry about that, honestly. I would just take these off. These are 12-point 17 millimeters. Take all of them off, all those bolts, pull the flywheel off, and change out your rear main seal. Just do it. You'll be real happy you did it, trust me, because you don't want to go down the road after a whole transmission removal and not change that out. Now this one's a lot easier than the Ford because it doesn't have a whole plate. You just kind of get a screwdriver in there, pry it out, and then tap your other one in. Just tap in a circle until it gets flush, and then you're pretty good. So just be careful not to scratch the crank when you're removing that seal. Now I'm going to get a socket, and this socket is a inch and looks like 7/8. Alright, so we're just gonna hit it. There we go. And just like that, comes right out. It's a perfect fit. For the new bearing, you just take the pilot bearing and we're going to set it right in there. And you just want to kind of, you don't want to hit the center, so you want a big enough socket that it can hit only the outside edges, and that's going to be, it's going to be a little difficult because this one, it's close, but if you slip, you're going to end up hitting smashing in the bearing. So if you can hit the outside like this, and you just want to hit it until on the other side you see it meet with the actual groove that there is, the stop groove. Alright, let's flip it over, and as we can see here, it's right on the groove. There's no more line. It went flush with it, so that's where we want to be. Alright, now a lot of people will put some Loctite on these, but I don't. I just hit them with an impact, and also a lot of people torque them to the torque specs, but it's pretty hard when you got a bolt this flat to get a torque wrench on there, because when you do, it'll slip and you'll never get this bolt off. But when you have an impact, you can push really good and just da-da, da-da, and it won't slip. So I'm sticking to the way I do it. There we go. And once you get it started, a couple threads on there, now you're going to push it in and let it line up with the bearing and the crank. And then you're going to turn it, the bolt, until you get it flat. Also, a lot of people will torque them down with a torque wrench, but you risk a big factor of slipping, and if you damage these 12 points, you're going to have a heck of a time getting them back off. Always make sure to clean your flywheel off with rubbing alcohol, Windex, or brake cleaner. You want to get all the fingerprints and the grease, because the clutch will slip and it'll get in the clutch discs, and then you'll end up having more problems. Here's how we're going to install this clutch. You want the fat side right here, the part that's higher, you want this towards the pressure plate, and you want this flat side towards the flywheel, and that's on every clutch. So now we're going to take our keyway and we're going to slide it through the clutch and then into our pilot bearing that we installed, and then push the clutch all the way to the back of the flywheel. Now make sure that this keyway is all the way in there, or else your clutch will fall down. Now we're going to install the pressure plate. Make sure you have one of the pressure plate bolts ready, because we're going to get it tightened, and just so it stays on there. Now you have 3 dowel pins. You have one here, it's kind of like a keyway, one here, and one here, and this aligns the pressure plate. So take your pressure plate and look for the flat holes, the ones that are flat, not the ones that are sticking up. There's a hole there, so we got to kind of get ready to put it on there. So I'm going to look at this real quick, and we got 1, 2, 3. Okay, so where my 2 top fingers are, that's the 2 top ones, and then there's one on the bottom. So it kind of goes in a triangle right here. So I'm going to slide this over the clutch, and I'm going to turn the flywheel until it gets over that keyway. Or no, not that one. Almost. There we go. There's that one. There's that one. And, oop. I think I got that. There we go. There we go. Now take your bolt and get it started, or else this is going to fall right off because it applies pressure. You can't quite get it on that keyway all the way. Alright, there we go. There, I got it started. Just make sure you check the bottom one. I can't quite see it, but I see the keyway through there. And let me have a quick look. And the keyway is right through here also. So now we can go ahead and tighten this down. And if you guys need to know torque specs on this engine, just type in the Fastlane in Google, or if you're already on YouTube, just go under my About Me section, and all my website and everything's in there. You're gonna go right here where it says Honda Database, and click that, and it's gonna take you to this page, and it's gonna show you, engine specs, transmission, ECU list. We'll go here to technical, just touch that at the bottom, and now it's going to take torque specs right here. Just click that, and it's going to show you. I got to click it. It's going to show you all the torque specs for the engines. I'm still working on this website, but I already got B, D, F, and K series. So if you want to go to B series, you just click B series, and it tells you all the torque specs for the entire engine. So it shows you how to torque them, like right here, valve cover. It shows 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the torque sequence. So flywheel torque specs shows you right there. Torque steps 19, and then 38, and then 57, and then 76 foot-pounds. And it shows you also how to torque it. 1, 2, 4, 3, or 3, 4. So pressure plate. That's what we're on right now. The pressure plate. So right here, in order to torque the pressure plate, it shows you the steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. That's the sequence. And then we come over here. Actually, let me see where it's at. Here it is right here. So we got 5 foot-pounds, then 10, then 14, 19. So 19 foot-pounds is the max torque. So it shows you everything from the head, exhaust pipe, everything. So go ahead and check out that website. Now it's time to install the throwout bearing, or the clutch release bearing. And we're going to pull the clutch fork out. And you can just push right here. Just pull out. It sits on a little ball like that. We're going to take the clutch release bearing, and it really doesn't matter if it goes up, sideways, whatever, as long as you're going forward. And we're going to go just like this, and you want to leave it just like that. As you can see right here, just slides right over like that. Now we want these pins in the groove. You can see right there. So it's going to go over the ball joint. And the easiest way to do it is to get it in like that, put a little bit of grease right there, and hold it, and slide your fork like this over top, and then just push over the pin or the ball. So as you can see, now it's on there, can't come off, and that's exactly what you're looking for. Now I'm going to remove this drive axle seal, and the reason why is it's wore out, and on my other transmission they have very low miles, maybe I'd say 5,000 miles if that, so I'm just going to reuse those. So we're just going to put it in here, and you don't want to go too far because you don't want to scratch the actual casing, and we're going to hit it out. There we go. Just like that. And that's pretty much it for that one. We're just going to set this right like that. And sometimes you can get them started with your fingers, but you don't want to do that. You want to get them flush. There we go. And you can take your flat mallet and just kind of tap all around it. And not very hard because you don't want to dent. You might even be able to use a rubber mallet. I just don't have one on me. But we can take the butt end, just kind of hit it in a circle, and eventually it'll go nice and flush, and that's all you're looking for. You just want it flush. So that's pretty much what we're looking for, and that's pretty much it for that. It's going to be the same thing for the other side. Just kind of slide it under there. Just give it a little tap. There we go. Yeah, you gotta be careful on that outer wall. And if you do get a little scratch on the outer wall, just put some RTV. Just kind of put a little RTV on the seal, and it'll stop it from leaking there. If you're worried about just a little scratch right there, just kind of glaze it just a little bit with some RTV. You don't want to put too much on there. Just enough to kind of cover the little scratch or whatever. Now just set it back down in there. And you want to be careful. You don't want it to go down on a couple different angles. Just kind of try to get it flat. With this one, might be able to push it with your fingers. You just want to get it completely flush. Okay, that looks pretty good right there. All right, there we go. Let's see if we can't. There we go. That's it, just like that. So now we gotta take our bolts. You just want to get one started. And now I'm just gonna zip them all in. Check out the website if you're looking for torque specs on the B series and other engines. Okay, so quick overview on the torque specs. The bolts, tranny bolts, they go to the block. Those are 47 foot-pounds. The tranny bolts that go to the tranny mount are 54. So you got 54 here, and you got another. I'm pretty sure those are 54. Let me see here. So you got 3 and then 3. These are each going to be 54 pounds. So you got 54 here, and you got another 54 right here. Once you get it jacked up just a little bit to this mount, slide the bolt through. Just start tapping. So you hit the other side. And then you're going to start tightening it. It's another 17 millimeter. This tranny bolt right here is going to be 40 foot-pounds. And then, like I said, we got these ones. These are 54 right here. And then that's it. For the starter, it's the long bolt on the bottom and the short bolt on top. So just pretty much slide it right in there like this. Put the bolt right in. It's really that simple. And the long bolt goes right in the bottom. The long bolt's a little trickier. Kind of got a feel for the hole. So pretty much the linkage is all hooked up. Starter's back in, just 2 bolts right there. If you're looking for torque specs, like I said, check out my website, NTHEFASTLANE'S. All the torque specs for this whole build is on there. So pretty much we moved the clutch, the slave cylinder, and now we're just going to move it back down through there, and the wires pretty much just like this. So all we do is just lift up on here, kind of push it in there, and it should be real close because we don't have the clutch to the floor. So now all we're going to do is take our 2 10 millimeter bolts, or actually 12s, and we're just going to put them right in there. Now the final finishing touches, I just put the starter back on, just 2 bolts, one on the bottom, one on the top, and you can fill your transmission fluid with the speed sensor right there, down there. Take out 1 bolt, it's that one right there, that bolt right there, and the whole thing comes up, and then you just stick a funnel in there, put 2 quarts, a little over, just undo your drain plug, or not your drain, but your fill plug, and when it starts to drip out, as you can see in the other video, I did a video on the Honda Accord, like I said earlier, that shows you how to do all that. I didn't do a video of the drive axles or anything because it's already on my YouTube channel with the '96 Honda Accord.